Our grandma used to say, and this was a traditional saying
Yeah.
from her peoples. If you want to have fun, you bring in some gun. Of course, they referred to weapons and shooting javelinas in the middle of the jungle for food. So it made more sense then. But I think it applies to this particular case, man. A lot of people are fucking crying and up in arms about every fucking movie that the DCEU puts out. Doesn't matter what it is, somebody's going to cry. So they decided, you know what? And probably wisely, let's bring in a little gun. And as aforementioned, then comes the fun and possibly some javelinas. But anyway, the point is, that's what they did, man. James Gunn, of course, became more mainstream known to people because of his work with the MCU, how he brought up a bunch of people that, basically nobodies to everybody but the geekiest of comic fans, and then made them like mainstream characters, basically. They're beloved now. So that's probably the guy you want to bring in to try to kind of, stir the little shit around and fix problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's pretty clear that we're not going to get the Snyderverse continued, at least not the way that we dream it will be continued.
Yeah.
We may, but not in the way we dream. And they're all over the map, to be honest with you, in terms of how they continued past Justice League with the other stuff. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it has Aquaman going, doing his little power poses and shit. And I'm like, what is that? They're a little bit all over the place. Even we, being DCEU fans, can admit that. Wonder Woman 84 being the ultimate example of corny!
Yeah.
Man, that was shit sucked.
I feel like I want to get out a little quick message just to get it out of the way.
Go ahead.
I see a lot of Snydites hating on this before it even came out.
Yeah.
I was following some page that somehow they could not have seen it because it was not out.
Yeah.
Did not get advanced screenings of it, and they were really like, "Oh, this is the worst MCU thing ever."
Yeah. I don't understand that.
I feel like even if you hate this movie because you like the Zack Snyder stuff, it's a good step forward in that they're letting people do what they're hired to do.
Yeah.
That is what we wanted with Zack Snyder. That was what the campaign was about, getting his vision.
Yeah.
So this is a win.
Yeah. They let James Gunn do what he wanted to do. Or did they? Controversial, because I'm going to bring something up later that may tickle your pickle in the wrong ways. So I guess slap your pickle? But anyway. But yeah, the fact of the matter is that James Gunn has said, they just let me do whatever the fuck. And that's exactly, you're right. That's exactly what we wanted on Snyder. So guys, sometimes we just got to take a win when it's a win. You know what I'm saying? And this, in my opinion, right up front, I'm going to say the Suicide Squad is a win. Not only in terms of auteurs getting to do whatever the fuck they want with these characters, but as a fucking movie. It's a blast and a half, guys. If you're still wrong, you're still wrapped up in... If you were one of those people that didn't like the old Suicide Squad, because that was a thing, everybody's like, oh, I hate it, but then they made like a ton of money.
Yeah.
And, if you're one of those people, then, guys, give this a chance. It's bound to please. If you're a Snyderite that doesn't want anything but Snyderite, loosen that butthole up, guys, because this is actually pretty good, etc. If you're already a fan of the DCU, I don't see this displeasing you. If you're an MCU guy, this is a different taste of something that's in the same vein in terms of superhero-dom, but it's got its own stank to it. And that's what Gunn can do, bring his own stank. Because if you're a Gunnite of recent, then you don't know that Gunn's been around for a while. And, we've been Gunn fans since the Troma days. And he's just got this distinctive style. And here, it felt a lot more like his thing that he usually does than the Guardians movies did, which we loved. The Guardian movies are great. But this is a little bit more gunny. And sometimes, that's what you want to have fun, guy. Then you got to bring in some javelinas.
Yeah.
And the requisite guns.
That's
but
the
anyway,
saying now?
That's the new saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about this fucking movie. I just said I liked it. Nay, I loved it. What's your take off the top before we get into some spoiler shit? Because you just got to talk some spoilers. We're going to talk about this one.
I might agree. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Literal laugh out loud moments.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's a lot of javelinas in it, so that's always pretty cool. Pleasing to my...
Insane amounts of javelinas.
So many javelinas, guy.
So if you haven't seen this movie, go see it and come back so we could talk about it. If you don't give a shit, then stick around.
Mad spoils.
And of course, if you've seen it, that's what we usually do. Just talk about this shit. Now, of course, the plot of the Suicide Squad is much the same as the original plot. We have... In this case, we have some despotic third world nation getting, through a coup, getting to tap into this, shall we say, alien entity that could be used as a bioweapon. And because of this, the Suicide Squad is dispatched to take care of that, wipe that threat off the planet. The basics, you know. Of course, the thing here is we're introduced to a whole new rendition of the squad. Now, if you've seen, well, really, if you've heard the talk, the chatter, they were like, yeah, basically we're not acknowledging the original Suicide Squad. Does that mean that they erased the memory? No, this clearly happened in the same universe. There's a history that's established between Flag and Harley Quinn, especially Boomerang. We know that things have happened since then, that they've gone on missions since then, and that's really the only acknowledgement you get. But do you really need more fabric than that for this type of movie? I don't think so. So that's good. It acknowledges that it exists in this universe. You know, Superman is a thing in it. They mentioned that. All that stuff. It's just, this is a thing that's happened. And Suicide Squad, I think, is a good vehicle for that, for just taking us from adventure to adventure. So that's cool. If you were worried about that, it doesn't say that shit didn't happen, this shit didn't happen. It did. It's just not worried about it, you know. So but despite that, we only get a few returning characters. We don't get answers on what happened to some of the other characters, so that's unfortunate. But we do get a few returning characters versus a larger wave of new characters. So the returning characters, we've got Harley Quinn. Thoughts on how she's played here?
I mean, she's Harley, so that's pretty cool. I do think that her accent was a little over aggressive at times, especially in the beginning. I was like, whoa, chill out. But I ain't hating.
At this point, Margot Robbie's got the Harley formula down. She's made her own version of Harley that's just as much Harley as it is her own thing. And you either like that by now or you don't. I happen to like it. I think she's great in this. Even our hater-ass former co-host, The Guardian, liked her. So that says something. So we have her. We have Rick Flag, who I got to say, it's pretty cool how they've taken him from somebody that was kind of hateable and did have some character growth in the original Suicide Squad by the end. But here they've shown that he's been in league with these people so long that he's kind of one of them. Yeah. And he comes off as incredibly likable. So I really liked Flag in this, which I don't remember, but I think you kind of wanted to punch him, but in the good way in the first one.
He was kind of like an uninteresting character in the first one, I would say, out of all the people. So yeah, it was actually pretty cool to see him be one of the most likable characters in this. Right. But he went kind of from like a white sock to a cool ass printed T sock. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what that means, but let's roll. Sure,
javelinas. Anyway, we are a couple of javelinas, by the way. Just look them up. Anyway, we don't mean javelins, which is in here. And played by Flula Borg, and he's one of the new ones, so we'll get to him. But the point is, another returning character, of course, we have Boomerang, who, if you were a Boomer fan in the first one, bad news, he's dead.
Super dead, dude.
But it is cool. Go ahead.
It's kind of sad to see the most consistent thing and the thing that's been in almost the most freaking DC movies, the connective tissue of DCEU, be destroyed within a second because he's super dead, guy.
Yeah, he was I think a character that a lot of people that didn't like the first one, they were like, he was good. Yeah. You know, he was good, and he's still good for the little bit of piece here. If anything, he provides, again, that connective tissue, like you say, that's nice to feel. It gives you he plays into that feeling of this team, these people have history in some form or another. Yeah. So that's good until he dies. But it's cool.
I think even that like opening scene that he has with the rest of the people kind of gives a little feeling into why some of the characters aren't in there. It's just like a rotating cast.
Yeah. It's whoever whatever team is appropriate for the cause is who they pick. Whoever's incarcerated at times is who they pick. So it does give you that, it does explain that by nature of just you seeing the movie. So that's cool. Palmer's back, of course. And, Viola Davis just got it down to...
Waller?
I'm sorry, Palmer. What the hell am I talking about? Anyway, is there an Amanda Palmer?
Maybe.
I bet there is. Yeah. There's javelinas in the world. Why not her? Anyway, Waller's back, and she's consistently bitchy as she always is. But Viola Davis is just great at how at depicting how hateable this character is, and yet how essential it is to fucking having these things happen.
They do really crank up her ruthlessness in this one. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, there is that, but that's a good thing, man, because really the whole movie's cranked up to 11, and we'll get to that. But then, for the most part, the rest of the cast is a bunch of newbies, man, and some of them turn out to be cannon fodder, So if you were excited for Mongol's daughter,
Yeah.
which by the way, dude, I already had heard it. Oh, they made Mongol a girl.
Come on, man.
Dude, Mongol has been around since like the 90s. Jesus.
It's like those idiots that were like, oh, they stole the plot from a Rick and Morty episode.
Oh my god, yeah.
Good one, guys.
Anyway, the point is, there are a lot of members of the Suicide Squad to begin with here, but they are disposed of. Flula Borg is out of the fucking
Flula
picture.
died, man. Flula gained so much muscle for this role.
Is there anybody that you wish you would have stayed? You know, let's just tick off who dies. We got Javelin.
Yeah. Flula.
We got Flula, aka Flula Borg. What's his fucking name? Let's go to Mongal.
Yeah, Mongal.
She's fucking dead.
Super
Boomerang. TDK.
Mm.
The detachable kid, which has got to have the most humorous powers ever.
Yeah.
They're dead. Pete Davidson's character, Blackguard, dead as hell.
I gotta say, as a Pete Davidson's face hater, I don't hate the guy. I hate his face. It's disgusting. And that's coming from someone whose face is so grotesque that they have to hide it under a freaking octopus.
Facts.
It was pretty great to see his face literally blown off in a second.
You think Ariana got a little tingle? I think there was no hate there.
No.
But she still got a tingle. She's going to write about it. It's a little song. Goes like this. Ding. Anyway.
It's not a good song.
It's a tingle.
Yeah.
Anyway, who else is in there that fucking croaks? A weasel, technically.
Weasel, Michael Rooker, a savant.
Savant, yeah. It's pretty cool, man. They kind of like lead you someplace and then immediately drop you, which is, you know, in line with something that we saw in the previous film of sorts. But here it's like on a bigger scale.
Yeah,
and,
you get the Slipknot moment. Only it's an entire
multiplied times a billion.
Entire team, and you actually get to see the heads explode.
So, of any of these people that croaked mad quick at the beginning, is there anybody that you wish would have stuck around?
I want to say Flula Borg because he's my boy, but the real choice is kind of Weasel because he's funny. But also the real choice, the actual one that I would pick would be probably Savant because he was pretty interesting in just that little bit that they showed.
Yeah.
But it was a cool way to get Michael Rooker a paycheck, and just that sequence was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, it was cool. I don't like. I thought too, like Savant, but then there would be like 3 marksman guys that are super
that's true.
brooding.
It's actually it's kind of funny that they build him out to be like this badass, and he ends up being a wiener.
Yeah,
or runs away.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Weasel though. I mean, who doesn't want a big ass weasel running around?
It was pretty great.
And granted, he wasn't really dead, but he wasn't in the movie per se.
He's pretty much dead.
So might as well count him as dead. But anyway, yeah, they dispose of these characters right away. But then that's when we get into the thrust of this film, and it becomes kind of like this adventure, getting to their destination where they have to destroy Project Starfish. You know, which is obviously, if you've seen the trailers, a massive starfish. For if you're a comic book fan, Starro.
Classic name.
Which is the most appropriate villain for this type of movie because it's really ridiculous and yet kind of like cool, like the idea of like, you know, this alien being, godlike being that's, you know, can control you through his starfish, I guess, progeny.
Suckle you a little bit.
So that's pretty cool. But anyway, give me something good or bad about this, man.
I got to give a mad praise. You know, I'm a fool for good transitions. I'm not gonna say that they're super stylistic transitions, but they do have something to tickle my pick, and that is that they are very comic booky. They'll have like shit spelled out of detritus and stuff, which is like straight out of comics. You know, being a Swamp fan, they always do that with roots and shit like that. So it's kind of cool to see that in live action. Another thing that was kind of cool to see in live action is there's a scene like later on where it's raining and everything goes white in the back. Of course, you see that in comics all the time.
Yeah.
Just one color backgrounds, and it was kind of like one of those things that you think would never work in a movie.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see because you're like, oh, that's super comic booky.
There's a lot, you know, Gunn proved that he had a keen eye for kind of saddling both the cinematic and the comic book visual elements.
There's also
and his use of color in the characters, which could be detrimental if you have a bad costume. Yeah. That's something you can't undo, you know, that's all you'll see. But some of these costumes technically are awful, but the fact that he managed to to make something both that looks cinematic and that also feels 100% comic booky, makes these things, they just seem natural, you know, and the colors really work off of each other. And this is not a silly costume, but you know, Harley has a very visual look to her in terms of color schemes and just how she stands out again. And that's, if you notice her in the movie and how she's fit into the scenes, and then just apply that style, you know, that focus on the other characters, you'll see exactly how much work went into that, and it's pretty fucking rad looking, man. It's just a good feeling.
There's also like again, another very comic booky thing is that he finds a way of shooting things, which you know is something Zack Snyder's really good at, shooting things that are just like straight out of comic. Like there's a little fight that is all shown through Peacemaker's helmet, that you could just see that being a panel and something.
Yeah.
There's several moments like that are just like, yeah, that's comic. Can't hate.
One of the previous things I had said, I don't know if I said it on a review, but I definitely said it to you, is that the original Suicide Squad movie, when it came out, and even after it came out, after a few others came out after it, I always maintained that it was the most comic booky of the movies that had come out. You know, it had the most comic book style and just the way things are. They're not 100% serious. They're not 100% stupid. They're just kind of there, and you know, very visual, very big things happening, big scenes, big characters, you know, all that stuff. Well, this like just wrote on that and said, well, we can do that better, and it did.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because it keeps a lot of kind of the style stuff that had set up in the first movie. Like the kind of way they introduce characters, and the some of the transitions are very much like they're in the first, except that they're not super neon, and you know, they're not that style. It's the same kind of type of feel, but it's in a different style, you know. Yeah. So that's kind of like an interesting thing to keep, and it kind of makes it feel like it's in the same series. You know, I think I'm not gonna shit on Suicide Squad or David Ayer because obviously his vision was super compromised. But the fact that they kind of kept that in there is like a nice nod to it, you know.
And this is a perfect time for a segue because you set it up nicely, not even knowing where I was going. So I'll tickle your tenties for that. But, you know, a lot of people shit on the original Suicide Squad. And again, I stress, even though a lot of people love that movie, although now they're kind of like retreating, afraid to even say it. But it made a lot of money. I remember tons of people being like, hell yeah, dressing up the parts and all that jazz. And, you know, whatever that means, people watched it. And either they liked it or they hated it. That seemed to be the only way to go with that one, right? We liked it, and we understood, of course, that the vision was compromised. But you know, it still was a pretty fun movie, and it you know, ticked off a lot of the right boxes for us. Though we did feel it felt inferior to, say, you know, the other offerings at the time, except for Justice League, the original Justice League. But this one feels like on par with everything else. So I'll say that to say, and I've said it a few times now in regards to certain elements, this movie is exactly the same movie as that other one, only better.
Yeah.
Turned up. And that's not an insult to the original, which we still like, and we hope to see the original cut, because that may be actually a very different movie.
It is a very different movie, yeah.
But this is getting a lot more approval from people. And a lot of those people are the same people that shat on that movie. And I agree. I mean, and I'll be the first to tell you that this is a better version, but it's also exactly the same movie. And don't take this as a criticism, but hear me out. It's the exact structure. It's the exact things happening, only with different characters and in a different location. And so I was watching this movie and enjoying the hell out of it, but I couldn't help but notice this list right here of things. It has a team that is assembled and led by a black marksman / weapon specialist with a kid who was used to coerce him into action. That was in the original one too. We meet the team in detail, like you said. They tick them off. This is it. Yeah. That was in the first one too. We see some casualties from the team here, up the ante to a few casualties, not just one guy, that are played for comedic effect and to show how expendable they are. So that was in the original too. You know, we have the thing with the team sneaking into a city where the threat lies below the surface. And there's, you know, cannon fodder galore for them. Again, repeated here. The threat is some godlike entity that could create cannon fodder minions by the fucking thousands. Got that here too. The team forges a bond, especially during the downtime sequence and the bar sequence. We got that here too. We get background on a smaller character that ends up being super important in the end for the outcome. We got that here too. The remaining team works together to take out the threat. Obviously, that would be required in the team movie, but we got that here too. The team gets over on Waller in some small but significant way that kind of puts them on an even ground. We got that here too. Also, they both dominantly feature soundtrack selections over a score, which, by the way, was one of the things people were shitting on in the original. Yeah. We got the same thing here too. They both have a dumb water animal creature and character, I guess, that likes to eat humans. Got that here too. And they both feature a government cover-up ultimately, you know. Got that here too. It's literally the same structure, only they have ratcheted up the quality. Yeah. And it just works overall better. And I'm not shitting on the original, and I'm not saying, this sucks because it's that.
I honestly think that it was somewhat intentional because James Gunn has come out and been like, yo, if it wasn't for David Ayer's version, I never would have done this, you know.
I agree. But that does bring up the question, does that mean that 100% this is what James Gunn wanted to do? Or he was told, look, do this again, only better. It doesn't, in the end, it doesn't fucking matter because the movie's enjoyable. You know what I'm saying? That's ultimately what we will watch movies for. Are they fun? Do they give us something? Do they show us something that we could take home and talk about? And I think this movie does that. And it does it better than the original. And it doesn't dispose of it. It's different enough for you not to notice those things unless you're a particularly dweeby moron like me that's like, but see, that didn't bother me. And that's to the credit of the movie, man. You know, I think Gunn really brought, even if the studios were like, we want this fucking thing. Even if it was intentional, maybe it was humorously intentional. Like, let's make this only, you know, fix some of the elements. Even if that was the case, whatever the case, the movie is very enjoyable despite that. You know, so I can't have a complaint about this movie because I had 100% fun. But if I had to fucking forge a complaint, and it's not, it would be that it does kind of repeat that formula. But like I said, it's not a complaint because it does it better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's an observation that I had there. But on that note, or maybe you do have a complaint. Is there a complaint about this movie? If not, if you had to reach into your pocket of complaints, would there be one?
Yeah. This kind of broke the movie for me, honestly.
Oh, man.
Flu at Borg died. I was like, come on, guy. Flu luck. Bring back Flu. The Flu cut. Not really. I don't have a complaint. I agree that it is very much the same movie. I feel like maybe it was intentional because we know how James Gunn is. He's kind of a weirdo. Mm-hmm. And just the fact that it reached out to David Ayer and it was kind of like a, yeah, dude, we're good type of thing.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't, you know, that's kind of a cool thing to do. And right on the top of the special thanks is David Ayer. So he obviously was inspired by the movie at the very least, you know. But I do agree, it's pretty much the same movie.
It is.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing. You just... It's a ride. You know what I'm saying? It's a fun fucking ride. And I dare say that the people that enjoyed Suicide Squad, the original, enjoyed it for much the same reason. Even though this is a better quality movie, much the same reason. It was a ride. You know? That's it. Sometimes it's okay to just have fucking fun.
Yeah.
You know? The difference is that this one... It's just a little bit better. Like, the character work here is a lot better than in the original. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of cool stuff there. Some characters have become iconic from the first one.
Yeah.
But the character work here is better.
That's what happens when freaking people don't interfere and let someone do what they freaking want to do. You get a consistent picture.
Yeah, it's very evident from the original Suicide Squad cut that there was a lot more there. And a lot of things that were filmed that obviously were cut out when they did that second cut. You know, of course, we know that the reshoots were not normal reshoots. There were shoots to add things and so they could take out things. You know, it is what it is. And I still think it works despite that. But imagine if the intention had been, let's just make it that way. And then you get things that, like you say, they just lock in better. They work better. They feel better.
And I understand being kind of angry that, you know, David Ayer didn't get his version. You know, and there's people angry that they let James Gunn do whatever he wanted. But, I mean, come on, guy. This is a step forward. Like I mentioned already, it's a step forward. from what we heard, they're letting James Wan do his own thing in Aquaman. Though it's not, we didn't love it.
Yeah.
He got to do his own thing, and that ultimately I'm happy. Like I said in the Army of the Dead review for Zack Snyder, I didn't love it, but he got to do what he wanted, and that's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of like the ideal place you want to be, where the creator can actually create. Yes. And look, there's always going to be compromise, no matter how much creative control they have. But as long as the majority of the material is creator control, that's what you can hope for, the best at the end. And if you get a great movie out of it, then fantastic. But like you say, this is a step forward into making the DCEU hopefully more cohesive. Because they started fucking with that right after Man of Steel. They were like, nope, let's just cut shit up and let's rearrange stuff, and now hopefully this will succeed economically in the box office, so that we could get a lot more of that. A lot of more.
I feel that this review bombing and all this shit, it's
detrimental.
It is. It's not helping anybody.
I want the Snyderverse too, but how is it helping to shit on the other stuff?
Yes, they're not gonna
especially if it's good.
They're not gonna bring him back because you're being a piece of shit. Now you're being a piece of shit.
Especially if you're transparently that way.
Yes.
It's not cool. But what is cool? This fucking movie. Mm-hmm. Favorite character? Go.
I gotta say, Flula.
What's it, Flula? Dead ass Flula guy.
Super dead Flula was pretty cool. I kind of got. This is weird. Mm-hmm. I kind of got to say Rick guy.
Rick?
Rick Flag. He was pretty good. Thoroughly enjoyed him. And he's one of those that you're like, man, I hope he doesn't die.
Mad dead.
Super dead guy.
But it was a good arc for him, from where he was in the first one to this. That's a solid way to go.
I think that's one of the biggest things that it carries over, is that you could totally see big improvement in that or growth in that character.
Yeah. It's a good way to go. Another good way to go, getting choked by Harley legs. I'm a Harlite. Everybody knows I'm a Harlite.
You're a Harley for Harley?
I'm a Harlot for Harley. But surprisingly, she wasn't my favorite character. She's actually kind of a smaller character compared to some of the screen time that the others get. Don't get me wrong, she's still up front and center, obviously. But I think the movie focuses more on Bloodsport and kind of fucking Ratcatcher 2.
Yeah.
And Peacemaker. They get a lot more of the screen time than you would expect. I didn't expect to love Bloodsport because of a variety of reasons. One, going in, or before it even, I should say, I was kind of like, why not just bring Will Smith back? It's I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's literally the same character, basically. Why not just do that? And I think that was immediately even though when they were going down the same route, I was like, I don't know about that. But it wins you over immediately. And reason number two is Idris is kind of like a weird character in these big budget movies for me.
Sometimes he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. Literally does not give a shit. He'll vocally say, I don't care about this shit. And I'm not saying that comes off on screen. It's just it does have an effect as a viewer. It's like Bruce Willis. Yeah. I'm not saying he's at that level. Don't get me wrong. But if Bruce Willis doesn't give a shit, nobody gives a shit about his shit because it's shit. When Idris openly says he doesn't give a shit, a lot of the times you're like, does he give a shit about? You begin questioning, does he care about this character? Yeah. And the good thing about the Bloodsport character is whether he does give a shit or not, the character's kind of in that gray area, so it works out. Yeah. And ultimately, despite him having the similar beats to Will Smith's character, he does come off as richer,
cooler
in a lot of ways, and of course Deadshot had, I think, the fullest character in the first one, and in some respects so does Bloodsport, but so do all the others, so there's that benefit. But the point is that he overcame that despite the similarities in that character and the fact that it's Idris and sometimes maybe he doesn't give a crap.
Yeah.
He's just cool in the fucking movie, so who gives a shit?
He also kind of fits better into the movie than... No shit on Will Smith, though I would happily shit on Will Smith any other day, especially his crappy son.
Oh, but no, I'll punch him, man.
But there is something kind of distracting of going to see a movie and being like, oh, that's Will Smith.
Will Smith, yeah, I agree.
And don't get me wrong, I liked his character in the first one, but you do always get that, well, that's Will Smith.
Nah, he's
moment.
Just reached that level where you're like, oh, it's Will Smith.
And as big as Idris is, he doesn't have that effect.
Yeah.
And he plays the character so well that you just kind of forget.
Yeah, he kind of ended up being like way better than I expected. So that was cool. Was he my favorite character though? Now I gotta honestly say, though he comes close, I gotta say it was more the relationship with Ratcatcher that he had. That was my favorite character, quote unquote. So the combination of these two characters,
I agree.
Bloodsport and Ratcatcher 2, was my favorite thing.
I think to go with my pick, I would agree in that I think the rapport that Rick Flag, Bloodsport, and John Cena, that's right, John Cena, had, that was kind of my favorite thing in this, and that they're just kind of, there's even like a whole scene with John Cena and Idris like competing against each other in Coolness Olympics, basically. It's just like, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's just the thing. That's one of those examples of how this one-ups everything and does it better. There's a lot more between the characters to enjoy. You know, in the original we had, you know, obviously Harley stands out. Yeah. And it was kind of more like this forced relationship between people until they did get to a point. But
you have characters in the first that like could have not been in there, like Killer Croc.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a guy that was in there.
Diablo was cool,
yeah,
but his like kind of like blossoming moment came a little late in the movie. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying like it would have been better if we had a more of a bonding experience between the characters like we do in this one. So yeah, there's so much to enjoy, but I gotta say, if I had to pick a favorite character, quote unquote, it'd be these two because there's kind of like a symbiosis with them that's really cool, and I really like that. But anyway, what else, man? Anything you want to add?
I think it's kind of funny because the whole movie like intentionally kind of messes with what you're expecting. Sometimes that can be annoying, but it isn't in this. I think that one of the biggest moments for me is that I always expected Polka Dot Man to save the day, because he's obviously the shittiest. And even during the movie, I was like, man, they're not using Polka Dot Man. He's gonna freaking mad, come in last minute and kick ass. And he gets like a moment where you're like, oh, here it is, and then super dead guy.
He does help though.
Yeah.
So there's, I guess there's that. Yeah, characters like, you know, ridiculous sounding characters like Polka Dot Man actually being likable is quite the fucking feat. If you could get, you know, the Suicide Squad is usually composed of scrubs of the fucking DCEU universe with a few, you know, big names thrown in just for good measure. So basically any team dynamic in comic books. But you know, past the first like 20 issues when they got the big wigs, but then they're like, nope, gotta go to our own series. Here's a bunch of losers.
Yeah. Let's bring in Pack Rat.
Yeah. Man, nobody wants Pack Rat.
Let's bring in King Tut for the first time in comics.
Dude, if they bring in King Tut, I'm gonna fucking, I don't know, I might just burn Egypt to the ground.
Damn, homie.
Maybe overrun it with javelinas.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, the point is, yeah, we got a bunch of scrubs, and it's really fucking difficult to make characters that are inherently loser cool.
Yeah.
And you know, I think Suicide Squad did it for a few characters, but this one, the Suicide Squad, they really had to have named it something else. But anyway, this one does it.
That's my favorite naming scheme, is just adding the to everything.
Yeah.
Come the Batman coming up, just add the, dude. If you have a sequel coming, add the.
I mean, it's logical.
Makes sense, right?
But yeah, so achieving that is quite the feat. Achieving it with characters that are super fucking shitty, just in concept, or just not even concept, to look at. Yeah. That you look at them and you're like, I want this guy to die immediately. You know, is very much a feat. Polka Dot Man is one of those guys. You look at him, doesn't even matter what his fucking power set is, his backstory. You're like, I want to punch that fucking guy.
Yeah.
You know, when you're reading the comics. Here they got a great actor to play the character, someone you know is gonna bring something special to it. Mm-hmm. So you hold on, and then they give this character an unusual amount of context once they get that hook in you. You know, like, oh, hold on, because that's a good actor. He's in there's gonna be something.
He's in all the freaking promotional stuff. You had a figure made of him. You're like, he's gonna be big, guy.
Yeah, but it just works out. You know, the way they portray him, the way you want him to have lived, you know, by the end. It's cool, man. And they do that with several characters here. Even some of the ones that you just see off the cuff, like fucking Weasel. You're like, I wish that guy would have stuck around for a while. The good news is he is alive at the end of the movie.
Super alive, guy.
So yeah, there's that. If you're a fan of references, and if you're just a comic book geek, this thing is packed with them, man. There's so many to list that it would be a whole fucking thing of its own. If you're a fan of James Gunn, you're gonna see a lot of Gunnisms and Gunn stuff. Yeah, there's Lloyd Kaufman's in this.
Lloyd got a paycheck.
Yeah, you know, so that's pretty cool. So that's fun in that regard. You know, you can expect a lot of that. And of course, one of the things that has been talked about a ton is how they just made this a fucking hard R movie, and it is a hard R movie. You know, the violence is gory, but there's kind of like there's not a grotesque nature to the gore because it's such a light affair, you know, in terms of the way the humor plays into it.
It's also like really exaggerated at times. Like, you know, Capaldi literally just blows up, guy. There's a lot of people blowing up, so it never makes you go, ugh.
A lot of goo.
It just looks cool.
It just looks cool, yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, I wish I could play this because it kind of feels like a video game.
Mad video.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
So there's that. It does beg the question, however, this movie, if we ever see the Ayer cut of the original movie, which I think we can all agree was probably less inclined to be humoristic.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know that the movie that we did get theatrically, they added humor to it.
Yeah, for sure. He said that his was a very dramatic movie. Right. He recently said that.
So it begs the question, how would that version play off if this one becomes the preferred version, which I see it easily becoming the preferred version. If they ever do release it, how would that reaction be? Would it be even worse than the theatrical cut? You know, because the theatrical cut did add humor. Not a lot of it even, but it did. We all know
that people have a weird hate for anything different in comic movies nowadays. Yeah. Especially if you're going the dramatic route, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. So, but that's a question that we may never know the answer to. What we do know is that this movie exists, and it's pretty rad, guy.
Anything Sly is in it?
Who? Oh, Sly? Yeah, Sly getting a little paycheck. Sly sounding like a shark should sound. I mean, this is the dumbest version of King Shark I've ever seen.
He's pretty much retarded guy.
But I kind of like it, man. Yeah. He's cute. Oh, there's a cute-ass rat in this. There's a cute-ass shark. Come on, guys. There's a cute-ass weasel guy.
I got to say Starro was kind of cute, except for when you would see, like, his crevices.
Oh, yeah. Starro was a gross guy.
But from far, he was pretty cute, especially when he would move.
I want to throw up on Starro guy.
Throw up on him? Guy?
On him.
Throw up on him?
Throw up on him.
I did find his final line kind of sad, though.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. It kind of had like a... Ultimately, this movie kind of ends up making humans the bad guys. On all respects.
Mm-hmm.
They were responsible for Starro even coming to Earth because they took him from his peaceful floating in space. They were responsible for
rape at one point too.
Yeah. Definitely got raped.
Yeah,
definitely. It's not insinuated at all, guys.
But it really wasn't. I just wanted to be light with it.
Nah, he mad laid pipe on Starro.
If you ever want to see a Doctor Who rape a star, this is the movie for you.
It happened.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, they exploited it. You know, there's a lot to be said about the way it paints a picture of international affairs and, of course, the brutish force of the American government on a national scale, all that jazz. But it's not a message movie.
No.
It's there if you want it to be. It's a comic book movie wholeheartedly. And I'm all for either kind. This is just what this one happens to be. And it's really good at what it is. So, there's that. Effects, spectacular across the board. I can't think of one that sucked balls. There's some really cool visual shit here and there thrown in for style. And or to maybe avoid an X rating, maybe. Like Harley Quinn going down that... what is it, like a hallway, I guess. Hallway sequences are a thing now, by the way, but or have been for a few years now, ever since maybe Old Boy. Let's get a hallway and have people slaughter other people through it. But anyway, I think maybe that was a stylistic choice there. You know, where blood gushes are seen as flowers and stuff like that. But it looks very cool.
That's another thing that's very from the first one. You know, that you could see that being in the first one.
Yeah. Just an overall good time. So anyway,
I got to say, there's a lot of people crying, at least in those lame ass groups I'm in, about the humor. What's your thoughts?
Oh, it's fucking hilarious, man. There's some actual like laugh out loud moments.
It really is, dude.
It's just funny. It's clever. It never oversteps its boundaries. It's not corny.
Yeah.
There was some humor in the first one that was very like kind of like almost borderline groan inducing, but you know, definitely not too much of it. But there was never anything that I was like, ha ha ha. It was just a fun time. But this one has some actual like laugh out loud moments, and everything is just played to the nines, man. Yeah. You know,
I've seen people refer to it as MCU humor, but it's very James Gunn humor.
Yeah, this is not MCU humor. MCU humor, it's not always bad. Don't get me wrong.
But when it's bad,
it's bad, it's fucking horribly fucking cheese. You know, it just is sometimes, and when it's good. Don't get me wrong, but this is very much in line. I don't see this type of humor, especially when it's the more physical oriented humor, and by that I mean their gore is part of the humor, you know, the more extreme stuff being in the MCU anytime soon.
Like a character like Peacemaker, I could never see being.
Yeah. You know, these are a lot of the humor is derived from the amorality of some of the characters and stuff, and the MCU just doesn't have a lot of that. They may one day, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. So I would fucking highly disagree with that.
Yeah. People are trying really hard to hate this in certain camps. Camps that I'm already like, I'm not part of this anymore. This sucks. These people suck.
Yeah.
But seems that a lot of people are also enjoying it. So.
Yeah, hopefully the people that are willing to put aside whatever biases they have and enjoy, be that bias that you know you didn't like the previous DCU stuff, or that you're an MCU, you have a hard on for the MCU only,
that you only see Zack Snyder stuff.
Yeah, whatever. But just goddamn, can we just enjoy a fucking movie for what it is? Yes. This one's good, man. It's fucking fun, fucking time, and take that from a person that likes the MCU, and I'm okay with liking the MCU and DC, and we love the Snyder stuff, and we hope that it can continue. But honestly...
But that's what we have now is this, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, really, as a Snyderite that hopes that the Snyder Universe continues, I wanted to continue on its own timeline and also have this. Because this is cool, too. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Well, not Wonder Woman 84. That sucked. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Why can't we have tons of stuff? Isn't that cool?
It's like Shazam. We liked Shazam, and that was a very different movie.
Yeah, you know? So is this cool? Fuck yeah. Let's give it a score on a scale of 1 to 10, of course. Comparative to its, you know, superhero kin here. What up?
My sack was tickled the entire time. Flula did die, so I got to take off a little bit there.
And Flula dead as hell.
Super dead, dude. So many people died. The connective tissue of the DCEU, Jai Courtney, is no more. But, you know, other than that, it was a pretty great movie. I do agree with you that it is the same movie. But, it does, you know, it's a thing that happened. So, can't really shit on that because it was fun. So, who cares? I'm going to give it a 9.8. I want to give it a 10, but I gave Justice League a 10.
Yeah,
I'm going to give it a 10, guy.
I'm going to give it a 10, too.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a mad 10.
I mean, just because I liked Zack Snyders Justice League and give it a 10... doesn't mean I can't like this and give it a 10. They're different movies, yes. Different feelings, different aesthetic, the whole 9 yards. But they're both fucking good in their own respective ways. And I had a fun fucking time. This is the 4th time I've watched it, by the way, when I watched it with you. Yeah, I had to watch it 2 times because I got it early somehow. Anyway, I had to watch it 2 times, and the last night I was like, you going to sleep? And you're like, hell yeah. And I was like, oh, that's a thing. So then I just watched it again.
I've been waking up early, guy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's not my fault.
I'm just counting it off. Why'd you take offense?
Balls, man? Shit.
Anyway, the point
Flula died.
The point is, Flula does die, but if anything, that adds a point. But anyway, the point is...
homie.
Flula board, guy! Yeah, man. Cool-ass movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
What's the rating on the Javelina scale?
There is no Javelinas.
That's the major twist right there, guy.
Yeah, we lied to you about that, but there is javelins in it, and they're kind of important to the movie. Or really one javelin. And granted, a javelin is not a javelina, but javelina is also a word for javelin in Spanish, so that's a thing.
That's true.
Anyway, give it a javelina snort in the comments down below.
Snort.
Tell us what you think about it. Yeah, javelinas are pig-like. I guess
true,
they snort. I don't know what fucking javelinas sound like, man. What am I? Javelina hunter?
Yeah.
Anyway.
You know, it's an interesting tie between javelinas and and this movie. The guy from Breaking Bad, you know the scene that wanted to hunt javelinas. Jesse's friend constantly mentioned hunting javelinas, and that was the guy that got killed and his jaw ripped off in Brightburn, which James Gunn produced. And it was basically a dark Superman story. 6 degrees of javelinas.
Damn. Kevin Bacon coming in the mix. Yeah. Dick all out and shit.
Yeah. Oh, there's a big dick in this?
There is a big dick in this. Or mentioned anyway. Yes. Anyway, I guess that's it.
Yep.
Let us know what you think about this. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And I guess we're out.